Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us for this presentation on fundraising. And notice the three letters in that word is fun. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today with this slideshow. If you have questions, please interrupt. I like being interrupted as we go through what we have to talk to you about today. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm Jason with the Chester County Community Foundation. I'm the Director of Gift Planning and Stewardship with the organization. I've been in the fundraising business about 17 years and have really enjoyed it over these last years, kind of understanding, really what motivates and moves people in thinking about contributing to a nonprofit, and then also legacy. What kind of legacy do people really want to leave for an organization? And how does the family sort of become involved in that legacy conversation? So it's been fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed your fundraising experience with your respective roles and organizations. I thought maybe we could go around the Zoom room, since it's a small group, to just introduce ourselves, your name, who you're with, and are you having fun in fundraising? Go ahead. Anybody?
I can start. I'm
Great.
Beth Krallis with the Chester County Community Foundation. I'm helping with 250. My fundraising experience, I'm kind of learning from Jason and learning with you guys here today. And I would pass it on to Laura.
I'm Angela Scully. I work with Jason and Karen over at the Chester County Community Foundation, doing all kinds of different things, but it always ends up coming back to fundraising, right, Jason?
It sure does. All roads lead back to fundraising.
Right. And I've done it in politics, in nonprofits, and education. So it's kind of the full circle situation over here.
Laura, I think you're next from what I see. Sorry, I'm picking on you.
That's okay. No worries. I just realized it said L Kennedy. Anyway, my name's Laura
We know
Kennedy.
who you are.
I'm with Founding Forward. I'm the advancement manager for Founding Forward. We are a civic engagement and civic education nonprofit organization adjacent to Valley Forge National Park. I have been in fundraising since I got out of college, which was over 20 years ago. I worked for the Mann Center for a little while. I worked for a consulting firm that did kind of fundraising campaigns for a number of international development nonprofits for a little while. And then I have a degree in music, and I also run the Brandywine Singers, which is a very small operation on a shoestring budget that I find ways to pay for every year somehow. So yeah, fundraising is development is everything, and everything is development. So there I am.
I think I see Diane. Diane Dance.
Hi, I'm Diane Matthews with Westchester Dance Works, and I've been wearing many hats. Fundraiser is just one of the many hats that I wear, and it can be fun, but mostly it's work, work, work.
Oh, I guess I'll be next. I'm Renee Washington, and I'm with the Westchester branch of the NAACP. And I also work at the Charles A. Melton Arts and Education Center. So I wear many hats too, like Miss Diane. And don't do too much with fundraising. I try to leave that for other people, but I know it's needed, and I'm here to learn.
Good. And I think we have Jason Lang. Another Jason on the call?
Yep, good first name. I like it. So I'm Jason Lang. I'm with East Goshen Township. I'm the Parks and Rec Director here. And so, I do special events and community events and health and wellness and community development and all that good stuff. And in terms of Chester County 250, I also manage our blacksmith shop, which is a heritage site. So just on here to learn some more about fundraising. You know, we work with a small nonprofit here, which raised a little bit of money for our special events, but nothing with major gift fundraising. So that the topic definitely piqued my interest.
Great, great. And I think I see Debbie joining us as well. Hi, Debbie. Just let us know your name and who you're with, and are you having fun in fundraising? Oh, I think you're on mute there, Debbie.
My name is Debbie Burston. I'm here representing Kennett Underground Railroad Center.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
Jim Bazala, I think you just joined us as well. Do you want to let us know who you're with, and are you having fun in fundraising? I think you're on mute there, Jim. There you go.
Hello.
Hello. Jim, what's the organization that you represent today?
Chester County Historic Preservation Network.
Excellent. Excellent. And then I believe we have a Jenny Livingston on the call.
Yeah, who is that fellow, right? Jason? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jenny Livingston. I'm also here with the Chester County Community Foundation as an outreach officer. They didn't really trust me with the fundraising initiatives quite yet because Angela and Jason are the experts. So in light of them, I'm pale in comparison. But thank you for welcoming me on the call. I'm interested to hear from Jason and the rest of you as well.
Great, great. Thank you all. Good to see you. So let's dive in. So this presentation today is going to really help you kind of understand what major gifts are in the fundraising kind of practice. And I'm pleased to share with you some tips. And looking at this agenda, if you haven't heard right now, the agenda item number 1 we'll talk about is America 250 Chester County. We'll give an overview of that. I think we all know that, you know, there's a certain birthday or semi-quincentennial anniversary coming up, and you know, I feel like it's here already in another year. Number 2, we're going to give you some keys to major gift fundraising, some success there in terms of what you can do to adopt it in your fundraising practice and what you're doing with your organizations. We're going to give you kind of like some tools in terms of the fundraising roles, sort of like your role as a fundraiser for your organization, serving as an ambassador to steward your donors. Number 4, we're going to talk about the psychology of giving, who gives and why, and the 7 faces of philanthropy. And really remember, if it's one thing you take away, the top thing you should say to whomever you're speaking with or just leaving the meeting today, it is about relationships. It's not about being transactional. It's not about accepting a gift and saying thank you and being done. It is establishing a relationship with someone that will hopefully last a lifetime and provide some meaning for that person, for that donor, and yourself and your organization. Please know that it's relational, not transactional. We're going to give you a few talking points just so you can adopt in terms of, you know, having a cultivation meeting. What does even a cultivation meeting mean? Fundraising. We'll be able to provide that to you. And the solicitation and ask. This is about like 90% where people hit the stop button and say, no way, I am not going to ask for money. You can get past the fear or that imposter syndrome that tells you that you can't do this. I know in my experience, I landed in fundraising almost 18 years ago and had that fear, but you can get past it. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about how to do that. And then number 6 are some attachments. Here are some samples that you could adopt, basically helping you with your fundraising efforts, from a overall cover letter to a case statement to really kind of a fundraising development plan. A development plan is something that kind of maps out what you're going to do for the next year. So it's good to have things in writing. So when you're working with your executive director or your staff or vice versa, you have a roadmap there. So this is the agenda for today. So I don't think I have to tell you all, but I think 250 is coming. Did I say 250 is coming? I'm sorry. 250 is coming and it's here. And it's a delight to work with my colleagues on this initiative. It's very special. It's very special, especially in Chester County, since we were really a hub of a lot of activity, historically speaking, from way back in 1776 and even further. So the semi-quincentennial anniversary of our great country is coming, July 4th, in 2026. This is the team that works together on the initiative locally here in Chester County. There was a national effort for 250 that was started probably a good 10 years ago now. And then in Pennsylvania, the initiative started with the Commonwealth about the same time, maybe even a little less. And then, of course, in Chester County, the initiative started to start planning for the semi-quincentennial just about 3-4 years ago now. The Chester County Community Foundation is a fiscal agent and program manager for the Chester County 250 initiative in partnership with the Chester County government and the Chester County Regional Planning Commission. So we're all kind of working together in sort of advancing and making people aware in our great county, the celebration that's happening and what it attempts to do. These are our mission and aims. The Chester County Commission or Chester County America 250 mission is to inspire and engage all communities in commemoration of America's founding and connect Chester County's stories to the nation's past, as I referenced, present, and then the future of really what our goals as a country, how it aligns with our county and even regionally and across the U.S. These are our aims, which I think we all kind of have seen before. It's really to encounter the many ways in which Chester County participated and influenced in our nation's founding, and then elevate, and I think that's a good key word, elevate everyone's understanding of our continued journey to build a more perfect union. So we the people, really it's our core values and our framework. It's talking about the power of place, the American experiment and unfinished revolutions by and for we the people. So you're looking here at these colorful circles. This is really drawn from the Chester County Heritage Tourism Plan 2024. So you'll see that there's events taking place and sites that are very historic and important to our nation's founding, and really outreach and education. It's where 250 kind of aligns. These three circles align with the 250 initiative. It's the power of place, the agricultural bounty in Western Chester County and Southern Chester County, to the iron and steel industry in Coatesville and Phoenixville areas, the Philadelphia campaign, those historic areas that are kind of in the Battle of Brandywine and the Paoli battlefield and the Battle of the Clouds, those important battles that happened along with the area of Valley Forge. And then the path to freedom, the Underground Railroad in Kennett Square, that region, the Harriet Tubman Byway that's existing now in our great county, and the rich history there to the path to freedom. So this cohesion of our county in these areas is really key to 250 and our decision to move forward to help it grow. I mentioned the overlays here, the different areas of our county that are really kind of historic and are very important. The circles here, the dots, represent basically the heritage sites. It's amazing to see all of these heritage sites across the map of Chester County. It really shows how important our county really is regionally and in the U.S. nationally on our many different historical fronts. You'll see some heritage centers, the HCs that are existing in terms of people coming to these heritage centers. They basically resemble small cottages that provides a chock full of information, inspiring stories, signage that talk about the site. So the attempt here is to really kind of sync a lot of these historic sites together and combine them with a lot of local tourism, local community venues to really create a syncing historical map as time moves on. It's been the county's aim for quite some time. I moved to Chester County in 2002, and I remember them talking about this back then in terms of syncing these historical sites together to really kind of blend it into local tourism as well. So it would be a win-win. So that's really what Chester County 250 is sort of attempting and doing as we move forward. There's several projects that we're aiming to gain funding for and help with fundraising efforts. Hence why we're having this call today to help you in your various roles, either strengthen your skill set or help you get past the fear of asking for fundraising, donations, major gifts, what have you. I think as a 30,000-foot view here as American citizens, it's really about we the people, as I mentioned. It's our citizenship and our rights, the freedom to express ourselves, the freedom to worship as we wish, to prompt fair trial by jury, right to vote in elections for public officials, as we just did last week, the right to apply for federal employment, now requiring U.S. citizenship. I won't go into all of these, but these are our rights as citizens. And the responsibilities as our citizens is to support and defend the Constitution and stay informed about issues affecting our community and participate in the democratic process. It really is humbling as you see this here, as our roles as citizens in this country. So it's humbling. I mean, I personally feel. So those U.S. citizenship rights, our rights and responsibilities as citizens, really are drawn into the power of place and the American experiment and unfinished revolutions. This is more of a 30,000-foot view, but it's really interesting when you start talking about this existentially. This is a slide that I thought was pretty neat, actually. Freedom isn't free. Let's be honest. When you're fundraising and you're going about it every day, you're trying to raise funds for the organization that you represent, either as an employee or as a board member. It's a lot of work. It's hard. Sometimes donors will not give to your organization right away. They want to see other donors give first. Some donors are like that, in my experiences. So just like this founding father here, Robert Morris, and just like what he did, he sort of, like our Revolutionary War, he financed and fundraised to help our troops fight against the British. There's lots of excitement surrounding the 250th anniversary of our nation throughout 2026. Yes, let's acknowledge there is some divisiveness and, some political apprehension. And perhaps there is some hesitance from a donor or donors that, they may not want to support an initiative that you're doing because of, perhaps it's being perceived as a political tie-in. But, know that the time to start is now. It's really talking about, asking donors to commit to your cause. And just like Mr. Morris did way back in 1775. It's an interesting parallel in terms of what he did to finance the war and our efforts to fundraise, whether it's through our organizations or through the Chester County 250 initiative. So here we go. I want to talk to you a little bit about a trend. So if anything with fundraising, I think this is a good trend to follow every year. It's every June. This is a national outfit called Giving USA, and it's in partnership with the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, Indiana University. They come up with the State of American Giving from the previous year. So this past June, they released the report, and this is sort of highlights in terms of how it's going with American giving. So it reports on 2023 in terms of giving. So you may say, wow, nationally, Americans gave $557 billion to nonprofit organizations in our great country. Not too shabby, right? Yeah, not too shabby. Americans by far are very generous. And really, if you go back to the 1770s, Mr. Morris as well, it really goes to our roots as a country where we're helping causes get better and stronger through monetary support. It goes back to our sort of creating a civil society back in the 1770s. So there's an interesting parallel with our great country and our history with American giving. I do want to say though, and I don't want to be Danny Downer here, but inflation was something that we all heard in the headlines in 2023. Thankfully, it's sort of, kind of being kept at bay, and it's at where a lot of financial experts at the Federal Reserve are trying to get it to. But inflation had a little bit of a bite in terms of that 557 billion. It actually declined by 2.1%. I'm not all doom and gloom, though. I do want to say that recent studies that have just come out within the past couple of weeks have said that giving is anticipated to go up in 2024 and in 2025. Primarily, they're saying that the financial markets are going to stabilize and be good. And of course, people are going to have wage increases. Let's hope that they're right in terms of American giving, and hopefully this 557 billion will be even more than it was in 2023. I do want to share with you a little bit about where the donations came from. 67% by individuals. I've been looking at this Giving USA report for the last 8 years. Always the first thing are giving by individuals. But I do have to caution you about that. This report goes back several years, but in 2013, American giving was by individuals was up by 73%. So it has dropped, even though it said it grew by 1.6% from the previous year, it's dropped over the last 10 years from 73%. Why is that? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because a lot of organizations are going back to major donors and asking them for a major gift. Major gifts are defined as whether, depending on the size of your nonprofit and age of your nonprofit. If you're a younger nonprofit, it could be $1,000. That's your major gift. If you're a more established nonprofit, it could be 5, 10, 15, maybe even 50,000, where you define a major gift as, being major, substantive. But it looks like the major donors that are being asked to support the cause every year is eroding. So that's why you're seeing a stark difference between 73% and 67%. So I am asking you this, I'm telling you this because, and I said I wouldn't deep dive here, focus on your mid-level donors. If you have a more established fundraising program, focus on the mid-level donors who are giving you $100 to $500 and engage them over time and then ask them for a larger gift as time goes on. That's your pipeline to kind of take it easy on your major donors and let them kind of breathe and give them some room to think about what they want to do next for your organization. So I do want to give you that important point. Where did the donations go? It seems like every year the religious organizations are always at the top. However, if you look at a larger trend, religious giving is actually going down too. Again, I'm not being Danny Downer, but if you're sort of a religious organization and you're looking for fundraising, be mindful that over the last 10 years, affluent households are not giving to religious organizations as much as they once did. So this may show you that it's a good, healthy picture, but remember, the devil's in the details. But remember that there's trends and movements here that are at play. So I hope this gives you a larger picture in terms of American giving, but by far we're just really generous to our causes and our society. So here's some keys to major gifts. Major gifts raise higher levels of resources with less upfront costs. We focus on major gifts. Volunteers are key intermediaries to reach and engage donors. And there are multiple roles for the volunteers. Volunteers, by the way, what I mean is board members, others in your organization who can serve as maybe an ambassador, a researcher, a cultivator, an asker, basically asking for a donation, and maybe a steward. Major gifts do require face-to-face cultivation and asking. Cultivation is sort of like part of the fundraising process, right? Where you cultivate or engage somebody to make a gift to your organization, hopefully a major gift. But really the major key here, the last point I mean is the authenticity of the relationship. It's so crucial. You don't want it to be transactional. You want it to be relational as time goes on. Make them feel special and part of your organization, because that will pay dividends later in the future. It's about relationship, mission, and impact. People give to people involved with the organization. People give to causes they believe in. A recent study that I saw from a few years ago by affluent households in America, about 70% of the folks polled in that study said that they give to causes they believe in that are most near and dear to their heart. Most major givers tend to look closely at leadership and outcomes. They look at, in terms of how long the CEO or executive director has been at the organization, what have they done in their tenure to move it from one area to another to grow that nonprofit organization. So it's about major gifts are about relationship, mission, and impact. So let's begin in terms of 6 points I want to share with you in terms of being a donor and in some ways that you can be an ambassador in your fundraising roles. Major gifts solicitors are made, they're not born to the role. So, it takes practice to be a major gift solicitor, basically asking for a major gift. There's a lot of things that you can do there. You can, practice with a colleague or say someone at the community foundation that can help you practice a little bit of the things you want to talk about. Develop and sustain major donors is a circular process. It's ongoing, it's regenerating. It's not so much sales, but it's being mindful, having a situational awareness and being mindful when you're having a conversation with someone. And there's ways that you can help build that skill set personally. Most of the major donor relationship has nothing to do with actually asking for money. Again, it's relational and having just a person-to-person conversation. Somebody said to me in my career about 10 years ago, it was actually a lobbyist who had said, it's really, Jason, about talking to someone, and it's like as though you're talking to your mother, your mom, having a very special conversation and making sure that you're not letting go of that relationship. I thought that was an interesting example, but it's really true. It's sort of having someone as a family member when you're speaking with a donor. So here are some 6 tips that you can have and take away here. Be a donor. First and foremost, and we tell board members this a lot, is that really make a donation to your cause that you volunteer at or you work with. If you're an employee, there's many ways that you could do that. You could do through payroll deduction. Most workplaces have a payroll deduction program. You can make an outright gift of any amount. Doesn't matter if it's a major gift or not. So really it confirms your own commitment to the organization. Be an ambassador, number 2. Talk about it, the cause you represent wherever you go. I'm sure the folks on this call, you all do this. I know you do, to talk about being an ambassador of the nonprofit you represent. You're a good ambassador in action. You talk about it. You may run into some people at the grocery store, maybe take some folks to soccer practices or field hockey games or whatever. Talk about the organization that you're with wherever you go in your social circles. I do want to say it's practice, practice, practice. Talk about your cause at home, at work, with close friends, with strangers. Heck, throw in family members, right? You could throw in family members as the guinea pig to talk about your spiel. It's not, again, being salesy, but here's a weird thing that I did when I started out is really talking in the mirror. It's not weird, but I mean that in a good sense. kind of getting past the whole imposter syndrome where it's natural for your brain to tell you, you can't do this. You can't ask for a major gift or a donation. Yes, you can. You can use talking points. You can use a mirror. You could talk to your friends or family members, whatever works for you. That will help you bridge the divide and the fear. By the way, the ambassador is something that I always make note that I want to pause here. Being an ambassador means a couple different things, but for board members and employees, you can also do a cheat sheet. I have a cheat sheet that I always show as a visual aid that you can take in the community and give out wherever you go. Oh my gosh, by the way, I have a 250 cheat sheet. You may want some of these, you may have them, but these are good cheat sheets to give to people in the community, whether you're out, networking or out in the community, basically what your organization is about. It's a little tent card, and it's something that I've seen around for a good 15 years, but something that still works today. Be a sleuth. This is one way you can be an ambassador for your organization. There's ways to find out who people are. Thank you, Google. But you can definitely find people through your networks. You explore viable prospects for your cause. You develop partnerships with them. You put them on a mailing list. You visit your organization. You ask them to come in for maybe an open house that you may have. Perhaps ask people who know your cause to suggest other individuals who might be interested in your organization. Or you could be a stalker. It's okay. You could look for leads in social media. That's what I do sometimes when I'm looking at organizations and following them on LinkedIn or Facebook. And there's pictures, say, for example, in that post. I look to see who's in there and I look at the caption and I try to draw to see how that nonprofit or that organization or that person can align with my own views or my own doings with the organization that I'm at, with the community foundation. Again, not stalking, but it is stalking. You can also do this in print media. There's a variety of news outlets that are out there. Look, pay attention to the social sections. I know that sounds weird too, but in my experience, looking to see who's at an event and seeing people together pictured for a photo is a good one because it will tell you clues to see who you can develop as a prospect and then maybe a potential donor. You can be a cultivator. This is basically where someone in your organization could kind of work with a prospect or a donor to just go out to lunch or breakfast or coffee and just talk. It's cultivating them and educating them and engaging them about your organization. The cultivator should have a list of ways to involve the prospect: tours, receptions, open houses work really, really well. An hour and a half, wine and cheese at your place, and having board members bring maybe someone serving as a cultivator really pays dividends. I worked before the community foundation at a nonprofit health center in the county that did just that. They would have 2 open houses in the fall, one in the spring, and board members and some major donors, in fact, were tasked to bring a friend who could potentially benefit from learning more about the organization, and then be able to kind of bring forward someone who may want to make a major gift later down the road with proper cultivation. So keep that in mind. The organization or you can create a confidential prospect file. This is basically just a one-pager that shows important clues about who that person is and how it aligns to your mission, including how to bring up and talk about major gifts. And number 5 is really important too. It's being a solicitor. Again, you weren't born to do this, but there are ways you can do this. You can ask a prospect face-to-face for a gift. Practice helps, as I mentioned. You want to do it in front of the mirror, that's fine. Don't think it's weird. Number 6 is very, 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 very important. I think it's probably number 1, but in my view, the most important out of 6. It's being a steward. So if someone makes a donation to your organization, do you just go transactionally and send them an acknowledgement letter or a note saying thank you for your gift and be done? Are you making sure that you're engaging that donor in time over the year so they can renew their donation, or in fact, heck, make a larger donation to your cause or ask them for a larger gift. Stewardship and engagement go together. It's really the last point in the fundraising process when you're, the donor or prospect is asked or cultivated, solicited through various means, either face-to-face or through a letter or what have you. And then, of course, that final step is stewardship. So stewarding your donor, making sure they feel like they are really close to your organization. White gloving is another thing that I say, because they can easily just say, hey, I never heard from that nonprofit, so I'm not going to make my gift this year, or I'm not going to include them in my will with working with my estate attorney for a planned gift. So remember, stewardship is something that is part of the overall fundraising process for major gifts, planned gifts, heck, even annual donations of $25, $50. How are you stewarding those donors? Very important. Okay, and here's another fun thing that I want to share with you. These are the 7 faces of philanthropy. It was from a sort of a study that was done by Karen Feil and Russ Prince. These were known and still are known philanthropic experts that came up with a book called The 7 Faces of Philanthropy back in 1994, but still relevant today. If you were, do me a favor and just picture someone who is a prospect of yours or a donor, okay? I'll give you 1 second. So as you have that person in mind, or persons, think about these 7 faces of philanthropy. Where do you see these donors' faces? Where do you see your own face in your alignment with the organization that you represent? Is it the communitarian? Is it Fred Rogers? Doing good makes sense. And basically the whole idea here is that for a communitarian, if I'm going to help someone, it's sure going to be my neighbors. We've got to stick together to make life for everyone here in the community just a little bit better. So that's a communitarian. The devout, my career, I have worked with people who really feel like it's God's will that they have the wealth that they do to support the causes that matter most to them. It's a spiritual thing. So doing good is God's will. Thanks to the Almighty, I have the means to improve the lives of others. I believe God intends for me to help the deserving, those less fortunate than myself. Number 3, the investor. Doing good is good business. Giving only makes sense when everyone comes out winning. If I don't consider the financial repercussions of giving, my charitable relationships will not be very strong for very long. So I know that I too have worked with an investor for my nonprofit that I represented. The next few are pretty straightforward too. The socialite. There are people who will be a part of an organization, a nonprofit organization, and support its cause because there's a network. They see the donor list or the board members that they represent, and they want to be a part of it because they know it's a thing. They know that they're going to give a donation, and they're going to go to a party. The organization's going to have some type of recognition event, whether it's an open house or a more formal one where it's at someone's home. But it's having fun. It's going and meeting people and socializing and creating a network. Doing good is fun. The repayer. So sort of like, Mr. Branson here, doing good in return. So sort of like, being successful and giving to charity, that it's going to help some folks. The altruist, there are people out there. In fact, my one board chair, not at the community foundation, but elsewhere, was an altruist. She just felt like doing good. She did good because it felt right. Doing good is a family tradition. The Dynast, the community foundation, or I'm sorry, Chester County itself was started by several Chester County dynastic family members. So the idea here is that doing good is a family tradition. Charity was always what my family did. This is my 2nd generation now coming into the family and the philanthropy. It's part of who we are. It's our tradition. So there are people who are like that as well. where they're giving to charities and it's part of their family tradition. So think about how you are in these 7 phases of philanthropy too, as ambassadors to your organization, and the board members and the donors who are part of your organization, or prospects, people who you want to ask for a donation. Here's an interesting one. Who should give to our cause? If you think about this in fundraising speak, we talk about constituency groups. All right. So for example, you've got your board members, you've got your your donors, your plan giving donors, you've got your volunteers. We call those constituency groups in fundraising. Who should give to your cause, basically. Think about who's out there that should be sort of a target for solicitation, or at least cultivating. Think of groups, target markets of people who you can reach out to. Number 2, prioritize how likely they are to care enough about your cause to give a certain amount of money. Determine who can help open doors to these groups of people and key individuals. So think about what we call the Community Foundation door openers, people who say, yeah, I can make an introduction to so-and-so. So maybe it's being a sleuth. We talked about that just a little while ago, sleuthing to see if there's somebody that can open a door to a conversation to then have an ask for a donation to support your cause. Okay, so using this visual here, who are really the most likely to give, who are somewhat, so put them in this area, and then maybe least likely to give, put them there too. And then just kind of map it out in terms of who you're going to kind of target and ask for a donation over time. So prioritizing fund needs and clarify the case for donating. It's important in your fundraising to, when you're meeting with someone, to have a case statement. Fundraising speak, that's basically what we define it as, but it's basically information about what you can leave the donor or prospect when your meeting is done. So any information could be a one-pager about some of the key things that you're going to ask the donor or prospect for. But the case should be clarified. It should be, number 1, what's the need to be met? Why is it important to the world, the region, the area? How are we going to meet the need? How is your organization going to meet the need? How much will it cost? Who else is involved? What do you need from me, the donor? And how will we know when we've accomplished what we aim to do? These are all 8 points that the case statement or case proposal, I've heard it called everything underneath the sun, should address as you're kind of working with, getting ready to talk to your donor and your prospect. So cultivation conversations, help your donors understand why they give. I think maybe it's through family, faith, and legacy and experience, or analysis. With family, you're honoring and appreciating your ancestors, setting an example for living family members. Faith, as we talked about with the 7 phases, you're giving to spiritual beliefs and a religious practice. Legacy, I mentioned this early on in the presentation that maybe it's about somebody who wants to give your organization a planned gift. Maybe it's a bequest in a will, or maybe they want to make your organization a beneficiary of a retirement plan. Giving to influence the future and to be remembered, a meaningful gift. Experience, inspiration comes from an individual's own life. Perhaps they too were benefited from the organization's mission. Maybe it's a situation where they lost their job and needed to be seen by a doctor or dentist. So they went to a local healthcare center to be seen and became a patient. And they never forgot that they were a patient of the organization and were provided healthcare. As an example, analysis, donors objectively identify areas of greatest need and develop a method to accomplish goals. This is excerpted from your philanthropy roadmap, which is from the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. Definitely a good source for you to kind of referencing Google as you move on with your fundraising efforts. Okay, so cultivation meetings. I keep looking at the time. This is a cultivation meeting is basically preparing to meet face to face with a prospect or a donor. And there are some things that you need to do. You need to do some homework ahead of time to make sure that it is successful. Here are some 7 points for you to kind of have. In your conversation, you want to summarize your mission, your vision, and your key initiatives. Basically, tell them what you guys do. What is the high level elevator pitch that you want to get across to your donor or prospect. Ask the prospect what their interests in this area are. You know, start carving out a relationship. If this is the first time you're meeting this person or persons, maybe it's a couple, start carving out and extracting information from them about what motivates them as donors. By the way, if you find out that these people are actually donating to other organizations that are different than yours, that is okay. That shows that from a philanthropic learning perspective, they get it in terms of philanthropy and development. So if they're supporting 5 other organizations, maybe in the city and Chester County and elsewhere, that is okay. No problem. Number 3, provide a personal experience or value that conveys why your cause is of great personal meaning to you as the ambassador to the organization. Why do you work there? Why are you involved with the organization? Why are you a board member of the organization? Number 4, ask the prospect to recount a similar feeling they've had, sort of kind of relating at this point in the conversation. You relate the prospect's interests to your initiatives. So you're listening and understanding what their interests are, and you kind of are able to tactfully tie it back to your organization's mission, the initiatives. Summarize only 2 recent accomplishments and 2 key assets of your organization. Only 2. Because you want this to really be about the donor and the prospect, not so much about you per se, but you do want to kind of bridge and have an understanding of, have them have the understanding of what are some recent accomplishments. And then leave with next steps that deepens your relationship. Maybe it's basically saying, hey, you know, I'd love to have meet with you again in the next few months, maybe after the holidays, for example. Would you want to go grab a cup of coffee? Or, I leave that open to you to think about. Maybe it's not an immediate next step, but when you go back to your office, make sure that, you have a concrete next step in terms of what's next in terms of engaging this prospect or stewarding this donor. Here are some helpful tips for the art of the ask. Really be donor-centric. Get yourself out of the mix. I know we want to talk about ourselves and we want to talk about, be excited, but I've learned over time, it's really taking yourself out of the mix and putting this person, the donor or prospect, first with their interests. You may be able to kind of throw in a few things about yourself, maybe 1 or 2 things, but just let the donor, encourage the donor to come out of their shell and talk a little bit more about who they are. So some tips here, and I agree with these as I've learned along the way. Time. What makes us believe our donor is ready to be asked for a gift now? Is it a situation where that the donor or the prospect is ready? Is it a situation where the donor is up for renew for your organization, basically ready to renew their gift, which happens now? By the way, 30% of fundraising is happening right now in this year-end season of giving. So is it time for the donor to be asked now for a gift? As a prospect, if someone's coming in cold, you may want to kind of feel that out in terms of when the timing is right. And I'll get into that. The place, always a good place. I mean, in terms of if they're a foodie, if they're a coffee drinker, or, if they're not there, if they're a tea drinker, go with them and try to feel them out in terms of where they would be most comfortable. Is it lunch at a local restaurant? Is it at a tea shop? Is it at a coffee place? There's a whole bunch of them in Westchester here, but maybe there are so many. They're maybe good favorite local places where you can go and have a quiet conversation. If it is at a restaurant, make sure that you're finding a booth or a table that's not near anybody, that you're kind of, again, you're handling mom. You're going to lunch or breakfast or dinner with mom here. You want to make sure that they're comfortable and you have a little time for private conversation. You know, think about who are the best people to go with you, the best team to talk to the donor or the prospect. Is it just you? Do you want to bring your executive director? Do you want to bring a board member with you? Sort of start rehearsing, sort of like a play, really. It's a good analogy. Start thinking, who should go with you or your development fundraising person on these meetings. And the case, have a case for support. Be well versed in the case as you talk to the donor at this lunch or dinner. And by the way, I meant to say at place, it could be even at the person's home. I've had meetings with someone at their home. Heck, I've even had a virtual meeting with somebody, preferably be in person in terms of asking, but be mindful that it's got to be a safe place and private place as well. In your conversation with the donor, I think I mentioned this, talk about the concerns that might need to be addressed. If there's any concerns that the donor or prospect might bring that they're not so sure upon, be ready in your back pocket for some responses. Here's the fun part. Would you consider a lead gift to our cause? A lead gift can be defined as really anything for a small nonprofit or a major gift, but it's really a major gift. Asking them, maybe shooting for the elephants here, asking them for a large gift, a $5,000 gift, a $10,000, a $50,000, $100,000, whatever your organization defines as a major gift. Get ready and be ready. Now, at that point, when you ask that question, okay, be quiet. Don't say anything. It's kind of like what a reporter does. If a reporter is interviewing someone, you've seen this on TV and social media. They're asking someone and interviewing them. They have the mic right up front in terms of, when they ask a question, they leave the mic there on purpose to see if they would say something else that would be recorded on video, recorded in some way. But just be quiet. Be that reporter that's leaving the mic. Don't drop the mic just yet. Leave the mic there in front of them, and they're going to give you a variety of responses. No, maybe, not yet. Yes, if the donor agrees to your commitment, be grateful. Be grateful. Be humble, and make sure that you are coming across that way. And I mean that respectfully, but some folks just go, "Oh, great." Do not be transactional. Be, if they're a hugger, give them a hug, right? Say thank you. And there's a couple different things here that then the transactional stuff could come into play. Thank you so much. Big hug, big kiss, pledge note to sign, pre-addressed, have those things ready in, say, a folder and materials that you can give to the donor along with your case. All right. So those are some helpful tips that I hope you can take with you in some level as you work with your respective organizations. Here's some keys to successful individual donor fundraising. It's compelling purpose, case for support, specific goals, a solid plan, and meaningful impact. That will get you a compelling purpose. Meaningful cultivation and relationship development. Make sure that you're dedicated to this, that you have a leadership that's determined to help you, promote engagement and ownership. Make sure you own this. Understand donors' motivations, evidence of other support, opportunities for recognition and anonymity, if so desired. There may be a situation where a donor may be interested in a recognition opportunity. Some donors are like that, some donors are not. But some people may just want to fly underneath the radar screen. I work with a few advisors of funds here who have told me, Jason, I am getting solicited like crazy. I have seen the stack, by the way, of solicitations in the mail. They just want to go off the grid and off the radar screen and be private with their grant making for whatever reasons. So honor that anonymity that could be there. Know that, that there's avenues for involvement and meaningful participation. You may not get a response right away from a donor. If I go back here for a second, they say maybe, not yet. It's almost like that movie Cable Guy, if you saw Jim Carrey, anyway. But anyway, what I'm saying is the door's open there to a potential gift. And if they say no, respect that and don't be sort of caught off guard there. Know that, going into this meeting and you're going to say, okay, there is a chance they're going to say no, that I'm not going to support your organization. And be open as to the reason why. If they don't share why when you're pausing there in conversation, then ask them, say, oh, I understand. Thank you for sharing that. Would you mind telling me why you're not interested in making a gift at this time? So sort of practice that as you go. I know that we're getting towards time here. Oh my gosh, it's 1:01 already. Sorry.
Yes,
Here's the-
Jason, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure if anyone has questions, you could type them
Yeah.
in the chat and I will interrupt you, Jason, or
Okay.
you can interrupt Jason if he is okay with that too.
Yeah. And here's the America 250 Chester County timeline. This is where we are with our initiative that we're doing with fundraising goals. It's coming up. I keep hearing that Chester County 250 is coming. And here it is in terms of what we're doing as a team with our fundraising. Here's a sample letter in terms of what you can use. This is what sort of we've done, in getting people to open doors for us with some of the folks we're involved with our fundraising initiatives. We make it fun, we make it exciting, so be sure you're using exciting language. By the way, you'll have these slides available so you can look at it. A sample case statement, it's basically talking about, the aims, the goals. Could be one page, it could be a fancy flip book, whatever you think would be good for your donor or prospect. The fundraising plan, or AKA development plan, is basically outlining your roadmap for the year. What are you going to do with your fundraising for the year? And it's usually roadmap this way. I've seen it, 5 ways to Sunday in terms of how a development plan works. But it really aligns with your financial goals and your fundraising goals for the year, for the initiative, for the organization that you're working with. And then I've seen some development plans break out the number of donations. Again, hopefully you're using a database to record gifts in your respective organizations, and that you're able to kind of look at and do some reporting, analyzing your data information. So key in fundraising in terms of who can give you a larger gift over time. This is constituency group planning as well. So be sure that your development plan has some sort of framework like this with what you can kind of achieve. Again, this is basically some action steps that you can go into in greater detail with your development plan if you so choose. But it's working with your development committee or your advancement committee and getting the development plan started, the committee of your board. Zoom in next week to learn about a couple different things that we're working on from a 250 initiative. And of course, come join us for some fundraising speak again, after the holidays, I believe in January or maybe even February. We're going to talk about some corporate giving and some foundation government grant funding as well. So I'm going to stop there, see if there's any questions, and minimize my screen. So I hope you found it helpful. It's a lot to cover in an hour, but I think it's, some good stuff for you to kind of bridge that fear of anything that you kind of feel like is preventing you from asking for a gift from a donor, whether it's a major gift or an annual gift, what have you. Okay. Any questions? I think there was some stuff in the chat.
That was me. I wanted everyone to know that the slides for today's presentation are in the chat, and Emily will also send out an email with the slides and the recording for anyone who might have missed it. Thank you so much, Jason. Anyone have questions?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you have thoughts on indicators for identifying individual donors who would specifically be interested in America 250 projects?
Yes, that's I think where the sleuthing comes in. you know, if there are people that sort of are ingrained with a certain, I'd say, organization that's sort of with our 250 initiative, we have about 16 projects that we're looking to seek funding for. If there are people that sort of are part of that organization, we make a note of that, and then we say, wow, let's continue this further and see if they'd be interested in supporting that organization. I just think it's, you know, I hate to say hit or miss, but just kind of, you know, being mindful of who is talking to you and honing in on what their interests are to be able to make the connection. You know, I think there's preservation people out there in the community who may be interested. There's lists. I've even been told that there's the donors that are involved with conservation nonprofits in the county would be good prospects for heritage as well. Because you'd have to sort of, what I would do is in this situation, I would try to get a list of donors from, say, a conservation organization. Not that you're, you know, noodling around, but this is what you're being a sleuth. And then try to see the names of those donors and see if they would match up to what your organization is doing. And maybe bring forward to your board member and say, look, I've identified these people. Would they be interested? Do you know them? Does any of the board members know them, to have a conversation? I think that's what I would do, but I'm learning too as I go here in terms of, you know, matching up people. I think more maybe people living around historic sites that we're seeking funding for, maybe having a conversation there. If they live around a certain battlefield or historic site, get that information, and then see if someone knows them on a larger view and try to have a meeting with them if it's possible. That's more organic stuff.
I think Jason gave you a really good fundraising answer, and I'm not on the day-to-day fundraising side. I'm going to give you a better marketing answer, which like might not apply, but like everyone should be a potential donor to 250. It seems kind of have to connect their interest to like the themes that we've carved out. So like if they're arts and culture donors, then they can come in through that, you know, entry path and connect them to the arts and culture and tourism piece of 250. And if they are preservation, then they can fit in under the preservation side. And if they're, you know, just an individual donor who like has a lot of land and cares about the agriculture side, maybe like there's just a lot of entry points. I think it's so diverse and broad that if you can connect their interest with the piece of 250 that connects to their interest, it could be a really wide pool. But you're probably looking to narrow that pool, so I might have made you have a
I'm looking at the pool of our donors that already exists, and I am finding that I have been a little surprised at people who I thought would be like very excited about what we're going to do about 250, who are like, you know, and people who I didn't think were going to be excited are like,
well, you know what? That's funny.
What is the rhyme or the reason here?
I think it's where we are in terms of, you know, our politics in our country right now. There's such the divisiveness that has occurred is affecting that response. I had fund advisors yesterday who work on a fund and pitched the 250 initiative in, you know, several counties, Montgomery, Chester, Delaware, because their fund supports those specific areas. And surprisingly, I was kind of they just were like, man, like, you know, I thought they would say, oh yeah, please send me some information. But they were just kind of like, yeah, what is that? Like, but so.
Jason, do you think the best path would be to like let it go with them, or just give them some time to maybe heal and like maybe revisit shortly?
It's timing. Yeah, I do, Beth. I think it's timing, and I think it's, you know, now that things are kind of past us and we're moving on here as we get to the 250th, I think it's just timing wise. But yeah, you're right, Laura. I feel like some people are just kind of like the ones who I thought wouldn't be interested. They're like, yeah, tell me more. Interesting.
Well, hopefully you guys can join us again and continue the discussion. And if time heals, then maybe it'll be a more fruitful discussion for next month.
Well, please know that fundraising is, we're not born to be fundraisers. You really want to kind of be an advocate for your organization. Just level with people, be where they are, and be just humble and sincere in your approach, and practice in terms of fundraising and talking to someone about asking for a gift of any size. And it will come to you. It just takes practice, and just prepare yourself for the person's response. You can get past it, and it's not, take the fear out of fundraising, because it's not fear. It's actually fun. It's enjoyable. Okay. All right. Well, contact us if you have any questions. Let us know how you're doing with your fundraising efforts, and see you at the next Zoom. And, thank you for your involvement. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
All right. Have a good weekend.